Sure. I think one of the things that concerns me about the hospitality industry is that it has always been an industry that has had the exchange of a traveler and a service representative from whatever the sector. And I think that the integration of technology has kind of eroded some of that authentic customer service that you look for. And when I say customer service, it's not just a person who brings you a glass of juice.
In Verona, in Italy, which is the southern part of Italy. And Verona is a city that is well developed in terms of tourism industry. The city make a lot of money from that, so it's very central to the local economy. So I've met people that have been coming here for over 20 years, every
Wow.
year, 10 years, 5 years. They come every year for particular event. Maybe, for example, like the event that takes place in the arena, like the AIDA and the rest of them. So they never miss it. So if it were just a question of discovering something for the first time, at least they would have gotten it by now. But you are saying something important there. The journey, the experiences that they have. Because every experience is different all the time. Now, I remember a book, I think whether it was N9 Gear that was making reference to it. He was saying there was this particular tourist that came from, I don't know whether, I think it was New York. He came to Paris. He ate something that he really liked in Paris. And because he loved it so much, he talked to the cook. The cook gave him the book, the menu that he have wrote about the food, of course. Then because he wanted to replicate the menu at home, where by the time he returned to New York or wherever he's coming from, then he went home. Of course, he replicated it and all of that. Then after a year, another year again, he came back to Paris. Then he went to meet the cook, and he told him, he said, I bought what you told me. I did what you told me to do in your book, but your food is still different. Then the cook told him, did you put yourself inside? That's what was probably missing. So the experience really is always unique all the time. And that is why the travel industry is not going to die. Because during COVID-19, many people thought, okay, this is the end of travel. Because now there is the virtual travel that you can do, virtual experiences and all of that. But it's still small compared to the real travel. Because people want to feel other people. They want to touch things. They want to see things the way they really are, not in the virtual reality. So I'm saying that to ask you, because you'll be there for over 30 years, how you look at the potentiality of the travel industry and look at a small section of it, the African diaspora community, how we could leverage it. Okay, I'm asking this question because I think that a great proportion of our story, at least from our point of view, have never been told at all in the tourism industry. He said, what we do most of the time, we just try to fit in so that we can also join them to participate. But what we are saying now is that let's be audacious and propose a new way to look at tourism. That if I'm going to Paris, the first question I'm asking, can I see something that tells me, about my ancestry? Because this is going to filter into the different things, like the publicity, like the person in the graphic, like the food that I'm going to eat. Is it going to respect me? Because if you don't respect me, I'm not coming to your city. Right. So I'm trying to sort of propose this audacious way of looking at tourism. What do you say about that?
Well, I think destinations all have to manage the issue of perception. And the African diaspora has had periods of where the perception was incredibly positive. Maybe there was a movie that was released here in the United States that, provided this euphoria in terms of how beautiful it is and how contemporary it is and how modern it is. And that is something that I think needs to continue to evolve. If it's not through movies, through advertising and marketing campaigns, to realize that, in fact, there is a perception factor that may discourage the idea of wanting to go. It's, of course, it's a long travel, journey, but maybe we talk about what that journey is and how much fun that journey can be as you work your way there. And then, of course, once you get to the location and you have the opportunity to experience that discovery associated with it. But I do like what you've said in terms of it being audacious. And I think to some degree, it's looking at perhaps over the last 20 years, what have we done? What kind of perception has really been built up about the African diaspora? And how do we build a more consistent, cohesive understanding of it? Because there have probably been some perceptions that have certainly shown it as a modern, contemporary place to go. And then there are others that may show it still as an area that needs to be developed, and one that people may feel may not be very consistent with what they had hoped for. So how do you tell that story in a way that it embraces its history, that it certainly has its areas of development, but these other areas of excitement, and that it's one cohesive story that people get very excited about? And that campaign needs to be, without any doubt, pushed in a way that it becomes the norm, that it becomes the story that people become familiar with. But through my experience over the last 30 years, I would say that there have been periods where the idea of traveling to the African diaspora has been desired, but not for the reasons that may attract a larger market. It may be a very niche market that would like to go because they have this one particular perception and they want to go and experience that and leave. So I would say, how do you expand that and interpret that? A great one is as you look at some of these destinations that are not necessarily a desirable place to go because of the food, but in fact, it might just have natural beauty that people want to experience. And that's the message that has been consistently presented to individuals. So that would be my suggestion. I think it's about coming up with a very audacious campaign that talks about the past, the present, even conceivably the future, but in a very consistent way to address any of the perceptions that people may have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. You see, one thing I really love about this work that I'm doing here, this podcast, is that I have this time to be able to see different people and learn from them and see their different perspective. So that I've had to ask some scholars, some professors at the university, like, what is stopping you from connecting to your other brothers in different parts of the world to learn about them from them, not learn about them from the perspective of other people? I think this is what tourism can also help us to do. I don't need to read about if I want to learn about the African American, it's not enough to just read about it in a book. What if I can be there? What if I can be there? Because when I am coming, because there is a network of things that are happening, I need to buy a ticket. But when I get to really landing in New York or in Chicago, wherever I'm landing, I am meeting people that look like me. I am going to spend my money in their community because maybe there are little books that are written about this story. I'm not talking of the story of the United States in general, but in what way does this story reflect the struggle of the African American? Of course, I expect the African American to write this story because it's about them. Because the wording of this story is going to be our experiences. So in this same way, we can go to Egypt, go to Sudan, go to other parts of the world. But I think that maybe we need to even ask the question or maybe probe that we don't like what we are seeing. Let's ask people to do it differently. But this time we're asking other people that look like us to reshape the story so that it can be better in the way that we have it in the world today. But if we expect other people to do it, it's never going to be done. In fact, it will appear that it's never there. These are some of the questions that I'm sort of thinking in my head, that we need to be the one to shape the narrative and then take people there to experience it. I don't know if I'm overly utopia here.
No, you actually are a very good aspect of it. But I would say that amongst the way to authentically market and promote a destination is to use the voices of the people who are there. So engaging with those people who are the actual, representatives of the community. There is a emotional, there is a psychological authenticity that allows for you to connect. Like you said, even if you travel to somewhere here in the United States, you encounter an African American in Atlanta, and it's somebody who grew up in Atlanta. There's, a way of how they pronunciate their words. There's a sense of authenticity in how they tell their stories. And some of that you can just see in their eyes. So I think, to your point, adding a way of sharing the authentic story of the people who are from the community adds even more of a desire for people to go, because they feel that this is real. And that's what most people want to aspire to when they travel now. They want a real experience.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And of course, I know that we're going to come back again to this conversation. Of course, you will pick a date that is more appropriate for you. But right now, tell me about which area you are more concerned with, or you are more focused on in the hospitality industry. We are moving towards the end of the conversation.
Sure. I think one of the things that concerns me about the hospitality industry is that it has always been an industry that has had the exchange of a traveler and a service representative from whatever the sector. And I think that the integration of technology has kind of eroded some of that authentic customer service that you look for. And when I say customer service, it's not just a person who brings you a glass of juice. It's the conversation that you might have with that person who brings you the glass of juice. And I feel as though there's something lost when I'm encouraged to go to a kiosk and check in at the front desk instead of going to the front desk. Because while I'm at the front desk, I'm going to ask the person, like, where's a great place for dinner? And, what was the weather like last week? And, I learn more authentically about the destination. So I'm a big advocate for technology, and I think the integration of it has made it incredibly efficient for people as they travel. But I think it's important to kind of keep that balance where there still is the opportunity to authentically engage with the individuals who are a part of the hospitality ethos to provide that connectiveness that people look for when they travel.
Thank you so much for that, Greg. I really appreciate the conversation and the sharing here. This is really, really lovely. Now, for people that want to connect with you, what is the best way to reach out to you and to learn more about you?
So you can reach out to me through my email. It's Greg DeShields at outlook.com, or you can just visit my website, and it's gregdeshields.com.
That's lovely. Now, how would you like to conclude this conversation today? Maybe a message, or maybe a reflection to sort of keep the people to get something to think about.
The one thing I would say is we are all living through, very transitional times right now. Certainly here in the United States with a new administration, we've seen some vast shifts in terms of how we look at issues of equity and inclusion. I think at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And as human beings, we should provide grace for each other. We should like each other. We should try and bond with each other. And I think if the one thing I would want to leave as a closing thought is that, that person who's sitting next to you on an airplane or at the airport, just lean over and say hi, because, we never know what that person is going through and what those great words of communication could be from you. So I would strongly encourage people to just think in a way that's more supportive and thoughtful to each other.
Thank you so much for that, Greg. I appreciate the time and also the sharing here. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well.